Welcome to Huntingale. It's a paradisical town of peace and quiet, if you like that sort of thing. But as you guess, if a puzzle hunt happens here, there's gotta be some problems. And there's some hard ones on the forecast in Top 10 Puzzles I Did in Huntingale. Carpe diem. Starting off with a banger. Our first stop is the community garden, where a young girl stumbles upon some items as she's trying to find her sense of purpose and calling. A feeling that I'm really oh so familiar with as I too search for answers. No wonder those items got her attention, as these have puzzles that solve to an answer word or phrase. One of the items is a vintage bottle, coming from a vintage battle where the folks review those wine bottles. But puzzle hunt puzzles don't give much explicit instructions on how to find those answers. Many of the puzzles from the hunt involve identifying a lot of things I'm just not familiar with. But when I stumble upon interesting topics on my own, any seemingly unveiled secrets are as sweet as honey. After all, based on the flavor text, reviews like these are actually translations from a number of Japanese songs, including the very first opening to Oshinoko. Makes for good background music as I work my way through the rest of the reviews, though the years not matching song releases threw me off a bit. Still, first letters spell out annual song fighting between reds and whites, which led me to the NHK Kohaku Utagassen performances on New Year's. Now that's where the years come into play. Each year hosts a red versus white sing-off that naturally gives coloring for binary, especially with groups of 5. All that makes for a really strong start, but why is it only in 10th place? Well, the giving groups debated me with a lie. Converting binary letters give gibberish, regardless if I use the red as one, white as one, or even a mixture. Turns out that I have to reorder by year and performance order, and there isn't much hinting that. Honestly, the mechanics of having to pick colors based on winning years would have been really cool, and better nudging to reorder the bottles might bump this up a few spots. But even with the gaps and shortcomings, I know it's not a lie that there's still a lot to love from this hunt. Now, how do I see through this? A big challenge of a number of Huntingale puzzles is that the identification can put me in a fog. I historically fared better on the more logic-based puzzles, and I can at least get a start in those, but there's still no escaping the references in the Curse of the Pirate Mist at 9th place. We're given 3 battleship puzzles from 3 notorious pirates, but these puzzles can't be solved with the rule sets alone. At least Monkey D. Luffy had a note on using the Misty Sea, but even an attempt on marking seas as waters and Gomu Gomu no auto-solving can only go so far. After burning a hint request, turns out that interior information also referred to the names of fleets giving extra conditions. For example, Blackbeard's puzzle made way more sense abroad the Queen Anne's Revenge, as it can just look up solutions to the 8 Queens problem. And Jack Sparrow's Black Pearl meant it's my turn to place Black Pearls in Masu. Now, Monkey D. Luffy started off on the Going Merry, but the Thousand Sunny currently in One Piece is what we're really working with, because the seas that I looked at earlier actually referred to moons of the Sun and Moon logic puzzle. Setting sail on these path puzzles can be really tricky, but it's really satisfying to pull off strategies like identifying where the 1x2 ships could be. Extraction also seemed to be straightforward, letter reading from the Misty Sea, but Jack Sparrow's clue phrase was such a doozy. I thought EXP meant experience, but it actually meant exponentiation. That setup was definitely madness or brilliance, and it's remarkable how often these two traits coincide, especially in puzzle hunting. Although Huntingale doesn't have that many grid logic puzzles, the pirate theming really made it stand out with how the mechanics are incorporated. Making a very model of a major good puzzle. Finding references in puzzles can be incredibly tricky without the background experience, but I was able to catch on to a modern variation in my 8th place entry. I'm very well acquainted with a tried and true list of clues, but what really allowed me to information onward were the clues with the box number. I searched them all together. They seem important after all, and that led me towards Major General Song from the Pirates of Penzance. Now I can just control left for the song as an aid in solving most clues. I can even use a song to correct some answers, like how quadratical is intended for something increasing non-linearly rather than exponential. But even with all clues solved, I still need a smattering elemental strategy in extracting a final answer phrase. And that's where the more elementary subjects come into play. Because Tom Lehrer made a, modern variation with the Elements song that I don't have to listen to in a 2-hour drive, especially since the rest is a matter of matching the song lyrics with the elements. It's also why the box numbers were relevant. They distinguish words that appear multiple times. Now with the atomic symbols, I can pick out a final answer phrase that allows me to pluck out a sufficient park with a new dramatic finish.
And with that, I got through a modern variation early on without using a hint. So nice to answer something manageable. Because the difficulty is really something to break down. Yeah, many puzzles of Huntingale turn out to be a lot harder than expected. Based on the time frame, I only get 13 hints in total, and one of the first ones I used was to extract breaking news, my 7th place pick. Now, despite most clues not looking like they give much, I did need a hint to identify the subjects. Really helps that the blanks confirm the clues on MIT's auditorium and Jesus' delivery guys. But these suspects come from a bowling alley because all those shots are the infamous bowling splits, which actually have names. Moreover, the highlighted letters spell XOR pins. But that's where I ran into trouble, as I keep getting gibberish when I try to index or A1Z26 with them. As it turned out, my hint request revealed that I should actually get another bowling split. Still, I really liked how bowling mechanics have a murder mystery disguise, but with all the complex analysis later on, I'm starting to accept that I might not finish the hunt. As my hints start to dwindle, I usually aim my hint requests for different puzzles because theoretically, I could ask for follow-up hints on a puzzle I already hinted for free. Now, in some hunts, I will need to use up another hint request when it goes too long, but Huntingale staff were somehow willing to give me 11 follow-ups just for that one Latin puzzle, my longest chain. The second longest chain was for Clashing Constellations, my 6th place pick. I was immediately able to spot the ISO acronym, especially when the star patterns look like the ones used for countries. I can also spot a later use of IAU constellations, but the stars in the flags don't line up with the ones in the sky. Based on my first hint request, I'll need to pair flags with constellations that work with overlays and Caesar shifts, and my first follow-up revealed that pairs should have Caesar shifts sending the ISO code to a valid IAU constellation code. Good thing I have a list that I can Control F, but then the stars don't seem to align well. So my second follow-up revealed that the alignments are based on the canonical constellation rather than the arrangement used in the puzzle. That alignment determines what color gets associated with the stars used in that arrangement. Now I still need to find a signal flag, but attempting semaphore on flag coloring went nowhere. Based on my third follow-up hint, I should instead be looking at maritime flag codes, which notably assigns letters based on flag colorings. Oh, and for good measure, I use a fourth follow-up to confirm my progress. I often submit hint requests while working on a different puzzle such that by the time I get back, the hint gets answered. Really helpful when I'm running out of time in a puzzle with a lot of interesting layers. And then the storm starts to pick up. The leaderboard is also helpful in giving away the total number of puzzles so I can estimate the number of puzzles left. I got out of the budding with 5 hint requests left, so I figured that I need to solve 2 puzzles without hints. But weathering the next round isn't going to be any easier. At least my hunt in Gale is a scavenger hunt at 5th place, so it should be a free one, right? Well, first I need to do some actual submissions that are original and often involve real-world items, so I had to be creative with my limited resources, like using a napkin for a makeshift weather vane for task 7 or using a wall as a windbreaker for task 1, just like with a big bad wolf. And despite requirements for real-world items, I can still supplement with my Pokemon Go collection. A shining Goodra near a pride flag can be gold at the end of a real-world rainbow for task 9, and clever framing can get Elect Kid as lightning in a bottle for task 10. After a few more digital submissions and a quick video edit using Cheeto and Yuri's Rain Song ASMR, I got plenty of footage from HQ in return. But I need to find a replacement for the damages, let alone an extraction. The cracks made reverse image search tricky until I found results from Tin Eye, but first letters didn't give much. Then again, this blows. I want to retire. It's a weather note to find replacement names for retired storm names. I've thought about hurricanes first, but I got better results with typhoons, which also have a similar naming and retirement convention. And with that, that's one of 2 puzzles I solved without hints in the second round. Right in the middle of the church acts. A place I'm really so familiar with. I tried searching for puzzles that feel close to their classic counterparts to have the best shot of solving without a hint. The other one that I soloed was my 4th place pick, Diagram Full Crossword, but that doesn't mean the grid forming is any easier. As per usual, I had more confidence with proper noun clues than the rest that started with guesswork, especially should there be any weird shenanigans. But it helped that in a standard diagram list, the clue numberings can give a rough idea on answer length, which I can use in conjunction with intersecting clue answers to get a start on a 5x5. But even when I use numberings and bounds to rough out the overall shape, things start to get wonky with more square sections that don't seem to interconnect. However, I could force the square sections into the conveniently shaped holes such that the numberings remain consistent in this diagramful crossword. And with the final confirmation, I had no trouble extracting the final answer from the conveniently labeled clues. But diagramless crosswords aren't the only thing that needs assembly. When the children of Huntingale Church are running out of prep time with no script in sight, that's another kids' ministry that I need to plan for. Another scenario I'm oh so familiar with. Even the puzzles may have moments of reaching familiar territory midway through, and my third place pick of Huntingale was no exception. I first created with a lot of oversized jigsaw pieces that I later had to resize to make things easier to work with. Even if the puzzles don't fit perfectly, it didn't stop me from realizing that I'll need to dig through the archives of Puzzled Pint. It's where I can finally meet fellow hunters in my local area on the second Tuesday of each month. And when the series reaches multiple continents over 15 years, that's over 120 sets to search through. But the timestamp info from Huntingale's image files conveniently lines up with the second Tuesday, allowing me to narrow down a set. But that's not enough to determine how to work with the gibberish in each piece, especially without a clear connection with the mechanics of the source material. After using yet another hint, I later found that I should instead use the puzzle answers as an instruction. For example, speed-only memory meant calculating the speed from the distance time graph, and using the slope gives me numbers at A1Z26 to Acorn. But I still need to figure out what airport this flight is referring to, and turns out another follow-up hint shows that there's another flight to consider. A flight of beer. Because in addition to the 4 main puzzles in meta, there's also a location puzzle giving an advanced announcement on where to meet up. And the feeder answers match up with one of the areas, giving exactly the place to catch a flight. Before my top picks, some honorable mentions. Mark Gingers. Despite reverse image search troubles, I'm still able to get through celebrity identification without a hint. Open World. Got surprisingly far on this one, though I would love to see a puzzle titled I Show Speed. Cassette Remix. Fusions effectively make the searching quite challenging when one game has over 10 times as many creatures as 9 generations of Pokemon. The Elite League, the one meta puzzle I was able to solo thanks to Princeton's colors being super distinct. And after scrambling through the Acts of the Apostles with less than an hour to spare, I'm clearly getting into meta territory as I used my final hint on the final honorable mention, The Last Supper. The hint referred me to taking a closer look at the cells per row along with feeder answer substrings, which conveniently correspond to a month. Moreover, while my home church has so many potlucks and meal gatherings that I take part in, the Catholic Church has a canonical list of feast days at the meta puzzle reference for most of the original 12 apostles, which I had a squint to distinguish Matthew from Bartholomew. And thanks to another free follow-up to confirm letters and direction, I'm able to Nutramac the rest of the letters to get the final answer. Copy pastors! Makes sense with the Great Commission and how Huntingale Church can always just pull up the gospel. Now with the script already and the storm cleared up, all's well that ends well, But there's still 2 more puzzles to talk about. And I got pretty far in both. We're going all the way back to budding for my top 2. And I gotta get moving with Moving Day. As usual, the proper noun clues gave me a good start, but then I couldn't find a good answer for 6 down with a W and M in the middle. Still, when many other clue answers still fit together normally, there's gotta be something else moving about. Specifically the letters. I wanted the answer for 6 down to be 11th, but if I rotate the E, I could make it look like a W or an M, giving me a place to cram more entries, enough to start attempting extraction. It's natural to consider the small spiked V's pointing to letters, but what got in the way was my first guess with 18 across that I later realized I should correct. After that is quoting conflicts. I unlocked it earlier, but at first didn't know how to handle all that text and imagery. But when the other puzzles became harder, I gave this a revisit and realized that many background images and their blanks can match with famous bands like Queen or Imagine Dragons. Moreover, a closer look at the words revealed that most of them are antonyms of song lyrics from that band. All but one, in fact. And when the number of words match the number of letters in the song title, you can bet on which letter would be used for extraction. And where I can also use on a band with a massive catalog to get one direction towards a desired song. Both of the puzzles have clever extraction mechanics working with a theming that also has some interesting backstory. It's a close call, but quoting conflicts gets silver despite ultimately soloing that and not the other. I was a bit more impressed with the harder mechanics of Moving Day, even when I ended up using a hint near the end, bringing my total count to 14. But wasn't the max number of hints calculated to be 13? Turns out that my Moving Day hint got refunded due to being really close, giving me just enough to barely make it to the finish. When the hunt ends up in a place known for talking about Jesus rising to bring mercy, it really is fitting that the mercy of the hunt staff was a major part of being able to make it to the end. And that wraps up Huntingale. The cross-cultural fusion of writing styles brought forth one common experience: a lot of identification. That made the difficulty way harder than any of us expected. So my best shot at finding a sense of direction involves working off of what I know. But even the stories I'm all too familiar with can surprise me in new ways. Special thanks to Night Meow and Company for their graduation project, and for viewers like you, thank you.